Hi, I'm Mark Viasana, owner of Northwest Insurance Agency and proud SMU alumni. Insurance rates right now are awful. You know it and I know it. But give me a call and let's take a look at your...
You're listening to Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss Spirit podcast with Ben Garrett.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time!
Well, welcome into Talk of Champions. I'm Billy Embody, Ben Garrett in the RiverLand Roofing studio. Live edition of Talk of Champions here. Hope you guys are having a great Friday, getting ready for some Ole Miss March Madness.
I know I'm fired up. I'm fired up. I watched games all day. I watched games all day yesterday. It's the best couple of days, a few of the best couple of days in sports of the year. Games all day, every day. Ole Miss today at approximately 3:05 p.m. Central Time against Blue Blood, North Carolina. Did you know, friend, this is just the third meeting all time between Ole Miss and North Carolina. Do you know the last time they played? In the 1920s.
That was great. The Rolling 20s is awesome.
Right. You remember that when North Carolina lost to Ole Miss in the SEC tournament, and then North Carolina 3 years later in 1926 came back and got revenge on Ole Miss, but the final score was like 30-23. I love that. You know,
no 3-point line, clearly.
Yeah, no 3-point line, and obviously they were more concerned about, skirting prohibition in the 1920s than they were about getting buckets, Bill, in the SEC tournament. But 1-1 today, the rubber match, the third one in the year of our Lord, 2025. Heck yeah, man, I'm excited. And also the women. Tonight, the women play in Waco at 5 p.m. Central Time approximately. First time ever. We've been saying it all week here on this live Talk of Champions. Not every single day, but I think we've gone Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We're getting about every day, Bill, but we've been saying it. Historic time. This is something that has quite literally never happened before. So if you're an Ole Miss fan, I know you got work on this Friday, but Ole Miss men will be tipping off about that time where it's time to wind it down. Maybe the boss lets you get out of work a little bit early. Go watch the men play North Carolina, a traditional blue blood in college basketball, and then the women tip off at 5. So a day full of Ole Miss basketball. Not to mention yesterday was the second day for Ole Miss spring football, and they're going to practice again on Saturday. The spring portal window is coming. We've been thinking more and working more on potential targets, guys that we think are realistic options potentially. So, busy Friday, Bill. How are you? I feel like I don't ever ask you, how you doing? You look like $1 million. You good?
All over the place today. Just all over, man. We are like I told you in Oxford, getting ready for what feels like an inauguration around here. Jack's first birthday party, and
let's go.
I mean, I have pressure washing to do.
Yep.
You got family coming to town. Like, it's just it's gonna be cold beer time at 3:05.
Yep, yes, it will. Yeah. But then you get some great basketball. I will say, as someone, you can see my beautiful daughters, Gracie and Riley, right behind me. As someone with experience with first birthdays, that smash cake, just don't even worry about the mess that it makes.
Outside party.
That's great. Let the wife get the wonderful pictures. You're gonna have to clean it up, but it's a wonderful time. If you have a second one though, Bill, you'll realize how, you'll go back and go, why did we go over it so crazy for the first one's first birthday?
I said that yesterday. I said, poor kid's going to have a pizza party.
Yep. Because, first Christmas with Gracie, the oldest, right here. First, I went way over the top. I mean, crap that she didn't. You
got a band in the living room playing Chipmunks and all that.
You didn't, and toys that she didn't even touch till she was like 4, right? But it's a special time. Congratulations to our man turning 1. Is 1. Man, you're in the thick of it now, my friend. When you mentioned pressure washing, I was like, oh God. Yeah. A part of me died a little bit. I was like, oh, I've been there. I had to pressure wash my back steps. That's when you know you're old. That's when you come face to face with your mortality, is when you're pressure washing your steps.
I know. I know. So I'm gonna try my best here to, just get through it. Just keep the main thing, right, buddy?
There you go, Chris Beard. I love it.
Exactly.
I'll never forget that. It was so funny because me and Jared Ivey went and did the Ivy League with Chris Beard last spring, and we sat down with him, and Jared and Chris just like immediately clicked. I mean, they were buddies from the get go, and Jared mentioned that specific, like he said that like they were talking about his preparation and being a good practice player and a leader, and he said, "I like to keep the main thing the main thing." And Chris Beard looked at him,
about cried.
2 days later, he's like, "I use that. I like that." 2 days, like in the first opening minutes of his press conference, he's like, "I like to keep the main thing the main thing."
Oh
like,
man, that is good.
That's the man. Like he's always looking for new catchphrases and stuff. He's the man's motivator, and I'm excited to see him today, bro. I really am. I'm excited to see him. North Carolina is playing good basketball. Obviously,
They are.
They whipped San Diego State. I think that's more of an indictment on San Diego State than it is North Carolina. But
I agree.
If Ole Miss's defense travels, they're going to be in it. You can always knock them for their shooting percentages or lack thereof. But Ole Miss got to this place playing defense, being themselves, and if they come out today and play their brand of basketball, I think they'll beat North Carolina and move on. But what a day. What a Friday.
Yeah.
Here at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate on $3, $1. And brought to you, as always, by our friends at RiverLand Roofing. RiverLandRoofing.com, 662-644-4297. That little house up top. Our friends Billy Landis and them, few, if any, are doing more for Ole Miss in the name, image, and likeness space. So support our friends at RiverLand Roofing, 662-644-4297, RiverLandRoofing.com, and go to the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, affiliate on 3. Sign up for $1 friggin' dollar. One.
The thing that is interesting about North Carolina is their backcourt is just a lot of depth, a lot of talented players that have been there a while. You've got R.J. Davis, you've got Seth Trimble. Ian Jackson is one of the top young guards in the country. That overall matchup between the two backcourts. And in March, I mean, we saw Brandon Murray go off last night. That's how
former Rebel
kind of won. They're what was it? Was it Zach Edey and who's the other big man that kind of led a little bit of a renaissance there when they battled in the NCAA tournament? But this is a guards, tournament overall. You get guys that get hot, and so Ole Miss is going to have to slow those guys down. They're playing with a lot of confidence, but Ole Miss should be confident. They have 2 top 5 wins on the year. They've beaten Alabama. They've beaten Tennessee. They can do this. And if they just, it's so cliche, and I appreciate coaches that stick to being that cliche, but keeping the main thing is the most important thing for Ole Miss. And
I love starting
and how you can bring that intensity. I kind of like the 3 o'clock time frame for this too, because it's not like you're just waking up and finding out if you got the cobweb still going, or you're not the 8:38 game that tips off as late as it does. You have a chance to really just find a way to bring your defensive intensity right off the bat. And there should be no excuses. You have to find a way to bring it right from the get-go.
Absolutely. And of course, North Carolina is led by R.J. Davis. He had 26 against San Diego State on Tuesday in the play-in game. He's in his 5th year at North Carolina. I was looking, he's got 2,710 career points in Chapel Hill. That's second all-time in school history. And you think of all the players, the greatness that North Carolina has produced, R.J. Davis is right there as far as accomplishment and what he's done in his career. And I'm curious, I think the biggest matchup I'm looking for is who starts out on him. Is it going to be Matthew Morrell, who is one of their very best on-ball defenders, or is it Dre Davis with his length and the quickness that he has to get in passing lanes? It starts with defending R.J. Davis, and which one of Ole Miss's strong on-ball defenders, be it Matt or Dre Davis, is going to be that guy. Because you're not going to see Sean Padula on R.J. Davis. You're not going to see Juju Murray on R.J. Davis. I bet you'll see Matthew Morrell. This is like the perfect assignment for him. And if you neutralize him, Ole Miss has the depth everywhere else, especially with its smothering defense and turning the defense into offense. That, again, I think the matchup for Ole Miss, if you take away the name North Carolina, I think it's a pretty good matchup for Ole Miss. But it's going to be a dogfight. I could see it playing out a lot like the Arkansas games did. And
Right.
Arkansas is advancing and moving on in the NCAA tournament. Won yesterday as a 10 seed. Next gets St. John's. So we got Rick Pitino
So
and
good.
John Calipari in this. It's perfect. It's absolutely
I love
perfect.
it.
The only way it could get any better is if Ole Miss beats UNC today, advances on, and hopefully by this time next week we're talking about them matching the greatest single season accomplishment in Ole Miss history and making it to the Sweet 16 in Atlanta. And if they're there, Jake, I love you. You'll be there too, but I'm going to be sitting right beside you. All right. I'm going to be there in Atlanta. It's killing me. It really is to be here. And I love the RiverLand Roofing Studios. I love it. All right. But I'm supposed to be in Milwaukee. Old days, there was never a doubt, Bill, if Ben was going to be in Milwaukee, you know? And then COVID happened and then shut everything down. And then I don't know. But man, I will say if they get to Atlanta, I can't wait to be there. And it starts today. It starts today. And again, let us not ever lose sight of the fact that this is an historic day. You are living Ole Miss history today, and that should be celebrated, but also preserved and appreciated and kind of smelling the roses, as Chris Beard has been saying. Smell those roses.
We're just regurgitating all of his talking points today.
Well, because it's his day.
It's true. It's true.
He did the thing. He did the thing. He took Ole Miss in year 2 to the NCAA tournament. Man, it used to be impossible. It felt like the impossible dream to get to the NCAA tournament. I mean, Andy Kennedy won 20 games every single year. And if he had had the NCAA criteria that these coaches have now in 2024, 5, 3, all the 2020s, that man would have made it in the NCAA tournament a couple more times. But back then it was a lot different how they considered resumes and what they weighed. And, you know, you look at the SEC now, it's the toughest it's ever been, but the opportunity is greater for more teams to get in. When 14 of 16 teams get in from the SEC, that is unheard of. Yes, it's the best conference ever. The best, I mean, any team that complains about 14, complain the SEC for 2 months, and you'll see why they deserve it. Like Georgia did not have a good showing yesterday.
Right.
My guy Mike White did not have a good showing yesterday. Georgia did not help the SEC narrative. Neither did Missouri. But Drake was a 30-win team. You know what I mean? Like that's
Ben
more
McCollum
about,
can coach some basketball now,
right? Here's my whole thing about those low seeds, Bill. Maybe when are we going to learn that a team that won 30 games in their league isn't an 11 seed, right?
San Diego State.
No, I mean Drake though, like Drake.
Yeah, but Drake, but like a serious team,
Serious team. I mean that 30-win team. Of course, Missouri, and they're chanting overrated SEC at Missouri, and they have to wear it. Look, Missouri was like the 10th, 11th best team in the SEC this year. Ole Miss is better than Missouri. Missouri could have beaten Drake, but here's the bottom line. The SEC does get the benefit of the doubt now.
Yeah,
it didn't back in the 2010s. That does not diminish the fact that Ole Miss is back because they earned their way. Regardless of what the criteria would have been like in those days and now these days, this was that good of a resume. So put your big boy britches on, right? Ready yourself to play North Carolina and believe in the team that, like you said, beat Arkansas at Alabama at home or in Tuscaloosa, beat Tennessee at home, Colorado State, a bid stealer in the non-con, BYU, Louisville has been bounced already. They've got such a good – it's probably the best – and I said this on the board at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, $1 sign up today. I said this, and I mean it. Even if you consider 2001 as the benchmark, Billy, Ole Miss making the highest seed it's ever had, making it to the Sweet 16, this resume, this tournament resume for Chris Beard and company this year is by far the greatest resume Ole Miss has ever had, ever. When you consider the non-conference wins, the toughness of the SEC, and how they navigated it, regardless of what happens today, the best resume going into the tournament Ole Miss has ever had. So treat it that way, right? Yeah, RJ Davis is good. North Carolina's North Carolina. I expect Ole Miss to smother them. I really do. To absolutely smother them and advance and move on, and it only gets tougher from there. Is Ole Miss a team that is perfectly adept to win, 6 games in 3 weekends and win a title? No. Can they? Of course they can.
Yeah.
Of course they can. Look at 2019 Texas Tech. As long as Chris Beard, who now that Indiana is closed down, finally we can say, yeah, Chris is here. It's all good. You know what I mean? Chris Beard is here for the long haul, or at least for next year. And man, he's going to keep building this thing. But this team, smell the flowers, smell the roses, and give them their flowers as well. They deserve all the credit in the world.
Yeah, and it's the fun balance of the NCAA tournament where it can all be taken from you in one game, and your season's over, and now you're diving into the portal, which Chris Beard actually was pretty kind of open and upfront with about how it is the wild, wild west, which isn't a new revelation for anybody. But you also have somebody who is leading this program into their first NCAA tournament appearance in a minute, and doing it as a high seed, and having to navigate that and even answer questions about, oh, well, is Malik Dia coming back when he has, and I know the draft or the pros are there for him, but there's just such a weird kind of balance with all that.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't let any of the questions about what's next, because people inherently look to the future. You can't let any of those questions grab your attention away from what is such a cool run for this team, has been a fun season. And outside of that stretch there after that loss to Alabama, which was maddening, this has been, the best season for Ole Miss basketball in recent history. And the future is so bright. So this should be all gravy. This should be all kind of, extra to get the chance to go to the NCAA tournament now and go show what you've shown at various points this year, which is that you are one of the top teams in college basketball.
Well, what's really interesting is that you're talking about that balance of you've got to be preparing for the future. But we've got to figure out, I don't know who the decision makers are anymore, but we got to figure out a way to make the schedule make sense.
Yeah.
Chris Beard and them shouldn't be worrying about talking to all these kids they're getting into the portal while they're in Milwaukee ready for North Carolina.
Yeah.
Just like in football, in December when they're building out or wrapping up their high school signing period, also the first window while doing bowl prep. This is just insanity. It's absolute insanity, but Ole Miss is already busy. One player I wrote about, I want to say weeks ago, I got to find the name if I can even look for it. They've already reached out to a number of players. They've reached out to South Dakota transfer Chase Forte. They've reached out to, who else did I report, Bill? They've reached out to Iowa transfer Cooper Cock. Okay.
No.
Coach, Koch, the Koch brothers. I don't know. Definitely not the other one. Those are two names to keep in mind. Don't call him Cooper Cock. Please don't. Because then if the kid signs here, he's like, who called me Cooper Cock and made it a thing across, the Ole Miss message board community? Idiot. Ben, who can't pronounce names. He's just a fool. It took me 3 years to get Suntarin right. I was having to call him Sonny P for 2 years because I was so bad at it,
Yeah.
But yeah, they're already busy. I can't find the other player, but they're already busy in the portal. Unfortunately, that they have to divide their attention right between the recruiting space and the NCAA tournament, because of some people in Indianapolis just said, you know what, y'all don't like the way we enforce things? Fine, do it then, and they have let it become, like Chris said, the wild, wild west. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Chris does with this roster, though. After it, because we're not trying to look too far ahead. It's today. It's UNC and Ole Miss 305 approximately on TNT. We don't want to look too far ahead, but they're going to have to replace a lot, Bill. A lot. The 9 seniors, TJ Caldwell got into the portal back in November, announced officially that he was in the portal once the season was over. They've got to do a lot of adding coming up. And I expect them to be heavy on transfer guards. They're going to go for best player available. John Bowl, can he step up and be that guy for them in the front court next year, a guy for them in the front court next year? Because he hasn't played a ton, but Chris Beard told us, look, man, he's still on track as far, or maybe a little bit ahead developmentally. So what happens with guys like John Bowl? Eduardo Klofke is going to be a part of the starting lineup next year. He's as Chris Beard said, ready to be the face of the franchise, if you will. Lofty praise, but
he
made a
wheeled
good
him right
point.
out on Monday. He was ready to go.
He was, but like, look around though. Look around college basketball and name me a true freshman, many true freshmen who have been in the rotation all year for a top 25 team. They're not that many. So
No, for
it's a
sure.
good, Eduardo Klofke is going to be a good player for them. But those are just a couple of pieces. Meanwhile, you're losing so much. Sean Padula's gone. Trey Davis is gone. Matthew Morrell's gone. Jamin Breakfield's gone. I could keep going. Juju Murray. They're losing what made this team. So how you put those pieces back together with some returning guys like Klofke and potentially John Bowl will be fascinating to see. And you're unfortunately having to follow along with it right now on this historic Ole Miss basketball day. Shame on you, NCAA. Shame on you.
This is a good transition from what Ole Miss basketball shouldn't be worrying about to what Ole Miss football is going to start worrying about here soon, in a sense, or maybe not worry about too much. But before we get there, do want to remind you guys that our friends at Roback have a great deal for you guys to get the latest and greatest of their gear, whether it's polos, pullovers, joggers, shorts. Use code Ole Miss 20 for 20% off your first order at roback.com, RHOBACK.com. This is a really cool partnership. They are going to be bringing more Mississippi flavor to their lineup. I was actually in a store the other day in Oxford, and they had some additional Roback swag. So if you want to jump on board with the Mississippi Powder Blue here, go ahead. But roback.com, great breathing clothing, just really perfect for summer as it starts to warm up. So appreciate Roback for supporting Talk of Champions.
Also, BNA Bank, my hometown bank here in New Albany, Mississippi, they've been with me forever. I mean, when this podcast was the flagship, they were here. When this podcast was the Ole Miss Spirit podcast, Talk of Champions, they've been here every step of the way. Your local bank. Visit BNA. They have spots in Tupelo, all over North Mississippi. Here in New Albany, BNA is the place to go. It's still got that hometown bank feel to it. Carolyn Brownson, my buddy Wood, who does mortgages. Anybody, anything and everything you could think of financially that would typically be overwhelming for people like stupid Ben Garrett, who doesn't want to be an adult. BNA Bank is people you can trust and in a place where you can go and put your money and feel secure. So BNA Bank, thank you. We haven't talked about them enough, lately. And I wanted to give them a shout out, man, because BNA, they've been my people for a long, long time. Support them like you're supporting RiverLand Roofing, like you're supporting Roback, My Perfect Franchise Status, Jet. I'm telling you, Talking Champions is popping off, and BNA has been there since jump. So my shouts out to BNA Bank. I love those guys.
Yeah, great point there. And look, Ole Miss has some money in the bank. They're going to need more money in the bank to make it happen in the spring transfer portal window for the football team. Grove Collective going to go to work before rev sharing kicks in. They're already hard at work. I know that much. Walker Jones and them. And look, as we talked about earlier this week, we kind of mentioned it a little bit, but on the Ole Miss Spirit, ohmspirit.com for $1 for your first week, we dropped some updates on kind of their top targets in terms of positionally what they're after. And I wanted to kind of get your take on it because, when it comes to allocating resources, and we've talked about this a lot, and you've hit on this a lot, the allocation of resources is so interesting this time of year because what people are trying to do across the country right now is they're trying to sneak in these front-loaded deals that are maybe just kind of regular old NIL when it comes to, support the Grove Collective or, hey, I love Ole Miss. And it's just not really legitimate, but that's what the market is right now. And the spring transfer portal window could be a little wild. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Ole Miss, they've got a few positions they want to hit on, but there's also got to be that right price because look, the good thing about Ole Miss running things as a pro organization, which is, so-and-so's here on the roster, and then they go out and acquire a free agent that makes a little bit more. Well, go out and perform next year. And so it's just kind of all these different pro mindsets. Like the free agents who go and sign the new deals are going to get paid more than the guy who might even be a little bit better than the guy that they are bringing in. But Ole Miss is going to have to balance all of that as they go after some of these select position groups this spring.
I was really appreciative of the frankness in which Lane Kiffin discussed the problem he has right now that they as a staff are dealing with right now. He said this on Tuesday. He could not have been more on point. It is not personal. It is business. This is a pro mindset. He told the team, he's like, guys, this is a very important time for evaluation for us to see if we need to go add more. So if you want to put your best, this would be the time. It behoove you to put your best foot forward during this time before this portal window opens up in April, because Ole Miss has to, as the guardians of the program, Lane Kiffin and company, they have to go get put the best team together. So if they're getting underperformance at cornerback, right, Sage Ryan and TJ Banks and Chris Graves, they're not getting enough. They got to go get another one. They're already linked to the North Carolina cornerback. They will have no qualms about going and getting somebody, regardless of how you feel about it. This isn't about protecting feelings. Yes, Ole Miss isn't having a traditional spring game because of tampering and because of how the portal has influenced roster building, but Lane has been very upfront with all of them. Nothing is safe here. If they look with all this new at a position and say, man, we are lacking there, it doesn't matter who is at the top of that room, what kind of veteran might be in that room as well. They're going to go they're going to go get the best players available. And it sounds so simple, but this is not how college football used to be. It used to be, well, so it's so-and-so's turn to step up and make the plays and all these kind of things. And now it's, well, if so-and-so isn't performing, it's year 2, year 3, we got to go get somebody else. And you have the avenue in which to do that. It's free agency. There's no personal attachment to it, right? I mean, you look at the NFL, this is exactly what happens. The 49ers have had a tremendous run, right? And because of financial constraints and because of how they need to allocate their resources to build a competitive roster, look who all walked out the door. Big names. Jadarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw. I mean, there's so many 49ers that were part of Super Bowl appearing teams, competitive teams that left because of financial decision-making. And if Ole Miss looks at this roster in April and says, man, just haven't gotten enough out of that brand new defensive line, which I don't know, I'm pretty impressed with the defensive line, but definitely the offensive line, right? You look at the offensive line with Bryson Sanders, who is dealing with a hamstring injury. He steps out. He's your new starting center. He wasn't there on Tuesday. Patrick Kudus takes over the transfer from Arkansas, but once he is moved from an interior guard position to center, it opens up a lot of unknown about who's going to step up in his place. So Ole Miss is going to take a very pragmatic, as it always has under Lane Kiffin, pragmatic approach to this portal and building this roster out between now and August, because it just doesn't stop, right? I know it opens for 10 days, but Ole Miss added TJ Daugherty in August from Clemson. I mean, things could still happen. Ole Miss is always going to be open to opportunity, even if it comes at the sacrifice of a fan favorite for you. Maybe you're like loving a certain player, like it's now so-and-so's time. I've been talking about TJ Banks. He's just a good example. It's TJ Banks' time at cornerback. No doubt about it. But just as the timeline has been sped up everywhere else, it has for TJ Banks as well. Yes, it is his time, but it would do him well to show out these next couple of weeks, especially with the media and fans closed out of practice, because they're really doing some hard evaluating right now, Bill. And if a TJ Banks isn't seizing the opportunity as a starter, of course they're going to go add a cornerback that potentially or ideally can start, because that's how you build out competition. And the feelings don't matter no more, right? It's not about the loyalty or this or that and the other. It's a pro mindset. But in this day and age, it has to be that way. Yeah. There has to be this like cognitive dissonance. There has to be this, okay, we love you, man, but there has to be this separation, if that makes sense. And you're seeing that more and more. But I appreciated Lane's candidness about that. He said, we're going to go, this is a hard evaluation period for us for the next couple of weeks before that portal opens. And if it would, y'all need to perform, because if we need to go out, we have no problem going out and adding. Like, we're evaluating y'all now to see what we might need to add come April. And I think it's pretty obvious what they need already. Offensive lineman, cornerback, safety, and then best player available. If a running back comes out that looks better than Keywan Lacey and Logan Diggs, whoever it might be, then absolutely go get you a running back too. It's going to be a busy portal window, and Ole Miss has real priorities, right? And they've already reached out to a number of guys. By the way, that basketball player whose name I couldn't remember, I read about him a week ago, Adante Holloman from Georgia Southern. So Adante Holloman, Iowa kid, they're already deep off as Chris Beard and company talking to portal kids, and they're in the NCAA tournament. Lane Kiffin, it's a daily thing for them too. What do you think the priorities are, really, as we wrap the first week of spring football?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at the offensive line. I mean, and it's the biggest. It's not a red flag because they've addressed it already, but it gives you that tinge of like high blood pressure, knowing that Bryson Sanders is dealing with a hamstring injury. So then you have to look at Patrick Kudus at center, and because of that, now you're all of a sudden thin. I mean, you just are. And and I would say you're maybe a little bit unproven more than thin in a way. Like Devin Harper is in there. He's an early enrollee. Connor Howes is an early enrollee who I actually thought he moved around pretty well when I got a glimpse of him. But then you have, some other guys that are in there that they brought in, like a Percy Lewis could stick him at guard. He'd be massive, but
a massive man. That's a massive man.
Like huge. You have, guys like Delano Townsend, PJ Wilkins, who can kick inside and things like that. But, you're unproven. And so there's questions more than a sample size that reeks of concern. That's one thing that I picked up from our scouting team is when they talk about things, if they say they have questions, I mean, they're just questions. They're unanswered. We've been allowed in one day of spring ball, and they've wrapped up 2 days now. And so we don't have any answers. If we had the answers, we could say, well, it's concerning, or we've seen what they can do. We feel a little bit better about it. But so we have questions about the interior of that offensive line now that Bryson Sanders is down with a hamstring. So it'll be interesting to see if he's back next week when we're allowed back in. And then we'll maybe feel a little bit better. But it still is just giving you that tinge of high blood pressure about the offensive line as a whole. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's the secondary. I mean,
the secondary and offensive line.
Yeah, there's just not I'm not trying to dog the guys, but there's not a guy out there that really looks like a pro, and you got to have at least one pro in the secondary. And Mason Dunn could be a pro. MJ Preston could be a pro. They're true freshmen, though. Like TJ Banks looks the part, but you got to have these guys step up and make pro plays, and somebody's got to do that. If not, they got to go out and get one. And
that's what the spring portal is for, and that's what that's what the spring is now. It's OTAs. It's like when professional teams go to OTAs, organized team activities. They see what they've done over the course of the offseason. They go, oh, crap, we're lacking here, and go sign a vet who's still on the wire like a Calais Campbell, right? You need I need a really good three-tech. Let me go get Jonathan Hankins, right? Ole Miss is doing that exact same thing. So I think that's going to be the most fascinating part of spring from now until the end of it is where are the obvious need areas? And after a couple of days of practices, at least to us in our limited viewing time, it was obvious secondary and the offensive line. They're good at wide receiver. I know Micah Hudson, the Texas Tech wide receiver who Ole Miss was involved with in the first portal cycle, is back in the portal. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Ole Miss back after Micah Hudson just because Lane Kiffin wants good players, period. He doesn't care that, oh, well, you got enough wide. No. I want good players. And if Micah Hudson is the best I can get in the spring portal, I'll go get Micah Hudson and add him to the room. I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss reaches back out, if Ole Miss is in conversations with him. But wide receiver, you could see them make a hard decision. Say, well, all that Micah's been dealing with off the field and how weird it was at Texas Tech, we just don't want that drama. We're stocked up. I wouldn't blame them, right? You're not afforded that same type of opportunity with the offensive line and the secondary. You need more. You need more because the lack of true knowns is really what's holding or really what is the concern about Ole Miss right now, because it's all over. It's both exciting, enticing, intriguing, but also for a program builder, nerve-wracking, right? Because you want to try to make your team as risk averse as possible. You want to try to shrink the range of outcomes as much as you can. And right now, Ole Miss could be any number of teams. I mean, they could do any number of things next year. The sky is the limit, but we don't even know what the floor is. And so building up that floor and ensuring that you crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, right? And that's what's going to come for the next couple of weeks, man. And it's unfortunate because like spring used to be, it's ball, let's go watch so-and-so go, man, DT Shackelford's crushing things, you know what I mean? Like you miss those days. You're now talking about the cost benefit. It's like, man, I wonder if they could get a little scratch to go get another running back because I don't really love it's a weird way to break it down. But, who's to argue with the process? Because Lane Kiffin, I mean, he's won 10 games in 3 out of the last 4 years. No one's doing it better. And I appreciated, too, Lane coming out, and the first thing he said was, congratulations to Chris Beard. Congratulations to Coach Yo. Historic day for Ole Miss basketball. I know basketball historically has not been Ole Miss fans. It's been their third sport. Let's be real.
Yeah.
It's been their third sport. It's football recruiting, baseball, and basketball. So fourth sport. Chris Beard is changing that. This is a fun brand of basketball. It's a good team and likable people. Jamin Brakefield is as good of a person as it gets. I want to see Jamin Brakefield. 5 years he's been in college basketball. His first trip to the NCAA tournament. I'm so thrilled for Jamin Brakefield. Matthew Morrell, he stayed every single offseason. I know Matt. I know this for a fact. Matt was wanting to go pro for like 3 straight of his last 3 years. He was going pro. And he stayed. And now he's rewarded. He got his NCAA tournament appearance, right? So as exciting as the spring portal window coming up, the priorities that we expect them to be pursuing, football and all the newness, again, let us not forget on March 21st, 2025, keeping the main thing, basketball is in for an historic day. Win or lose, draw, it doesn't matter. Today is an historic day, and I really want to see Ole Miss go out there and whoop up on South Carolina. Bet MGM, the number one most bet side right now is UNC minus 2.5. All I'm going to say is this. Ole Miss is a defense that has traveled all year long. Assist to turnover, by far the best in program history. If Sean Padula predicts the basketball, Ole Miss is going to beat UNC. Yes, it's going to be a high-scoring game, a lot like the Arkansas games. Maybe into the 80s, Ole Miss having to win 86-83. But anyone that is discounting what Ole Miss is as a team just because of the history of the program, just like, it's Ole Miss, like that dude from CBS whose name I don't even care to know, calls Ole Miss a fraud this week. That just tells me you don't know ball, right? You don't know. And that's not because Ben's a big, stupid homer. It's not what it is. Dude, while UNC was 1-12 against quad ones, Ole Miss, I've already gone through the whole resume piece, right? They're objectively not a fraud. They have checked every box you could possibly check as far as non-con wins, strength of schedule, by far top 5 in the country, one of the best in the country, their schedule. And not only did they win, they won 23 friggin' games. What is crazy? What a fraud is? A fraud is kind of like Ole Miss's resume in 2013 going into the SEC tournament. It's true. They won 27 games that year, but they were only a 12 seed. Think about that. A 12 seed with 27 wins. And you know why? Because they didn't beat anybody in the non-con. The SEC was not a good basketball conference. They lost to Mississippi State, who was in the 300s in the net, right? This team did not do that. So y'all keep hammering UNC minus 2.5. Y'all keep calling Ole Miss frauds because you don't know ball, you don't watch enough, and just because you've got some anti-Ole Miss bias because Ole Miss has only been to the tournament 10 times in school history. Y'all go for all that. I'm going to sit right here, and if Ole Miss does what I think they're going to do, I'm just going to say I told you so. I'm fired up. I'm ready for 3 o'clock. I mean, even if they lose, I don't care if they lose. I do care if they lose. But, you get what I'm saying. Like, that doesn't diminish the accomplishment of the season and what this team accomplished, period. Anybody calling them a fraud, that dude, idiots. Seriously, because that just shows me you're in for the cult of personality nonsense that media is now rather than speaking on the facts. And the facts are few teams in the NCAA tournament have a more well-rounded resume than Ole Miss basketball. Yep. Again, the non-con alone. Non-con's what used to get Ole Miss. God, if they could just get one of these non-con wins, it'd be so huge for the resume. Colorado State, Louisville, BYU, like a one-possession loss to friggin' Purdue. Golly, I hope Chris Beard and them go out and just prove everybody. again, recreate Marshall Madness with Marshall Henderson Light, Sean Padula, and let's go. Fire me up, Bill.
We need it. We need it.
Everybody's hammering UNC minus 2.5. Screw that.
Need it. We need them to step up. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and both things could be wrong. Like, even if Ole Miss were to lose, like, they're not frauds. I mean, you don't get to this point. You don't get the top 5 wins. Like, I just don't understand. I think some people just have to say things to obviously get a reaction, or
it's just like Stephen A. Smith going on his media tour because LeBron confronted him courtside. You know what I mean? You talk shit about his son. God forgive me, I keep saying bad words. You talk crap about his son, and and he approaches you, and then he goes on like 4 different shows saying, "I just thought it was weak." Dude, you could have said it was weak to his face. He looked you in the eye. But no, it's what we do.
Bronny is pretty weak in the NBA. So
first of all, Bronny is coming around. Y'all don't want to get me started here. Y'all don't want to go down this road with me. Bronny's coming around. Yes, nepotism is real, but it's real everywhere. I don't want to get into any of this. Point is this. Media folks, we love to make ourselves a story now.
Yeah.
We love to inject ourselves and create a storyline because we believe that's the only way to stay relevant. I get it. I have been a victim of it. I have done it myself. However, if we really do what we were designed to do from the jump street here, as media people, objectively, you're incorrect, sir, to call Ole Miss a fraud based by basic metrics, right? And I don't want to harp too much on this, but it just goes to show that Ole Miss is stigmatized basketball-wise by its own fans, too. Again, being the 3rd, 4th sport, if you count football recruiting as a sport. This is a big game for a number of reasons, not the least of which, if you win it over UNC, have a memorable day, you arrive on in a national place that you haven't been to since 2013, and you aren't able to continue that, to extend that out and make yourself a national program after Marshall Madness in 2013. You got it back for another year, but it was a bad year. If you can win today and get all that press and be able to rub your nose in dude's face who called you a fraud, all those things, you arrive at a place competitively that Ole Miss basketball has never been. And Chris Beard is here. The Indiana concern is off the table. And Will Wade's off to NC State, by the way, your guy, right? That was going to be the guy. That if Ole Miss if Chris Beard had left, it was going to be Will Wade. I'm telling you.
Yeah, come on.
It wasn't even a doubt. And man, that would have been hilarious for you. You can't avoid the guy. I love Will Wade. I think he's awesome. But point is Ole Miss is at a place where if they win today, if they punch their ticket to the round of 32, if they get to the Sweet 16. They'll be at a place competitively that they've never been before. And as someone who grew up adoring Ole Miss basketball, seriously, I mean, I was Jozon Darby in the backyard. You know what I mean? Yep. Jason Smith, Anthony Boone. I love these cats, man. They were foundational for me as athletes. Everybody else, I love the Cowboys and Ole Miss sports. All right. If you'd have told me it had gotten to this place, I said, no way. But back then, there's no chance Ole Miss will ever get to that place. Beat North Carolina as the higher seed in the NCAA tournament. Dude, are you smoking crack? But no, it's potentially today. So a day of celebration, man. A day of celebration.
Yep. Should we leave it at that? And look, people can get to planning their days and getting ready for 3:05 p.m. Central on TNT.
Here's the thing. Bill and I had no idea what we were going to talk about today. We've enjoyed going live. Yep. We jump on, and he just basically let me go because he knew that I'm fired up today. I'm counting them. You knew, Bill. You just wound me up. You wound me up. You said, all right, Ben, let's jump on there, talk a little Ole Miss basketball. Knowing I'd get all passionate, telling all those people betting minus 2.5 UNC, hammering that on BetMGM. Losers. How dare you? I hope you lose all your money. No, I don't. But you're not giving Ole Miss its respect. You're not.
It's time.
It's over. And today, and Coach Joe, I have no doubt. Another reason why Ole Miss doesn't get no respect. We don't get no respect. You know why? They should be hosted, but they're in Waco, right? So I hope Coach Joe and them friggin' run to the Elite Eight, not the Final Four. She deserves it. It's a fun day, and it's really a basketball day that not many of us hardcore Ole Miss people who've been around it quite literally our entire lives ever thought we'd see. So don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that today. When you get upset because so-and-so misses a shot, or whatever, remember what you're watching. And remember where you are, because it wasn't always it's never been like this. And even with losing so much in the portal that they're having to balance, do you expect it to be any different next year? Hell no, you don't. You don't. Because Chris Beard is the most accomplished coach Ole Miss has ever hired. It's just true. He's one of the very best basketball coaches in America. And he's coaching your Ole Miss Rebels in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's perfect. It's so the perfect Friday.
Doesn't get much better than that. So from the RiverLand Roofing studio, Ben Garrett is starting off his Friday, getting ready for that 3:05 p.m. tip. I am as well. Get some pressure washing in, and then the Rebels play.
I feel so bad for you.
UNC. At least it's nice out.
It is. It's kind of cold here in Mississippi.
It's nice out here. I'm good with that. So, look, we'll have all your coverage on the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com. Part of On 3, $1 for your first week. We appreciate RiverLand Roofing, Roback, BNA Bank, Status Jet, My Perfect Franchise, and all the guys listening.
Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford. My guy Brian Johnson over there downtown. Go get you a new car with them. I bought 2 cars with them. Alan Samuels. See?
Alan Samuels.
We're rolling here, but RiverLand, I love those guys, and I'm still disappointed. Billy, if you're watching, I know you are. Call me when I say this. I just wanted a Status Jet ride to Milwaukee. I don't ask for much.
You couldn't get it done.
I don't ask for much. You couldn't give me a private jet to Milwaukee. I just hope that they go out there and blitz North Carolina, Bill. Man, that'd be fun. Just to go find that dude from CBS and be like, it's fine. It's fine. See, I need to be quiet. Just let Billy do his wrap up, because all I'm doing is getting more worked out. It's fun Friday, man. Ole Miss basketball, both teams in the tournament.
It doesn't get much better than this.
Basketball, today is the day. If you've ever thought about caring about it, today is the day.
Let's do it. 3:05 p.m. Central, and then the women right after that. So follow it all on the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com. We'll catch you guys next time on another live edition of Talk of Champions. Happy Friday, everyone.
Be good to each other.